My mother hung up after 11 seconds. Not angry. Not confused. Just tired. Like I was interrupting dinner. I stared at the phone in my hand while rain hit the windshield hard enough to blur the parking lot outside the pharmacy. For a second I honestly thought the call had dropped. Then the message came through. This number has blocked you. I laughed once. Quiet. More surprised than hurt. The prescription bag sat unopened on the passenger seat beside me. Inside was a bottle of vitamins I didn't need and a receipt for $8 and change. Nothing serious. No emergency. Just a test. But that wasn't the part one couldn't stop thinking about. 3 days earlier, I'd been sitting in a private office downtown holding a lottery ticket worth $335 million. Real money. The kind that comes with lawyers, security people, and strangers suddenly calling you, sir. I hadn't told anyone. Not my younger brother who only called when rent was due. Not my aunt who spent years telling people I was unstable. And definitely not my mother, Denise. I wanted to know something first. What would happen if I asked for help one last time? The answer came fast. Blocked in 11 seconds. I sat there another minute watching people walk in and out of the pharmacy while my phone stayed completely silent. Then another call came in. It was my cousin, Trey. And the first thing he said made my stomach tighten. Hey man, why's your mom telling people you're back on pills? I didn't answer Trey right away. I just looked through the windshield at the glowing pharmacy sign while my cousin waited on the line. Then I said, what exactly did she tell people? Trey lowered his voice. That you're asking everybody for money again. That things got bad. Again. That word sat with me. Because the truth was I'd only asked my family for help once in my life. 5 years earlier after I got laid off from a warehouse job outside Dayton. I needed 2 months to catch up on rent. My mother told me a man my age should figure it out himself. I figured it out. Since then I kept my distance. Birthdays. Holidays. Random family cookouts. I showed up when I had to, stayed quiet, then left early. Easier that way. Still, hearing she turned one phone call into a story about addiction felt strange. Fast. Like she'd been waiting for it. Trey cleared his throat. You okay? Yeah, I said. I'm fine. But something felt off. Not just the rumor. The speed of it. I'd called my mother less than 20 minutes earlier. Somehow she'd already talked to multiple people. That meant she hadn't hesitated. She wanted the story out there immediately. I drove home to my apartment and sat in the dark kitchen without turning on the lights. My phone buzzed twice more. One text from my aunt asking if I was getting help. Another from my brother asking if I'd started using again. I stared at both messages. Then I noticed something else. Neither one asked if I was okay. I didn't reply to anyone that night. Not my brother. Not my aunt. Not even Trey. I just sat there replaying the timing in my head. 20 minutes. That's all it took for my mother to decide I was a drug addict again. The next morning I tested something else. I sent my brother Eric a message saying the pharmacy wouldn't refill my medication unless I paid up front. I told him I was short $200. Nothing dramatic. Just enough to sound believable. He replied 7 minutes later. Can't help you, man. Got my own family. Then, almost immediately after. Mom says you've done this before. I read that twice. Before. Like they'd already built a version of me that explained everything. A lazy guy. A screw-up. Someone you avoid instead of help. I shouldn't have cared anymore, but I did. Because none of them knew what my life actually looked like now. They didn't know about the financial advisor in Columbus. Or the lawyer who told me not to trust sudden kindness. Or the fact that I'd already bought a small house under an LLC 2 counties away. I kept all of it quiet. And that afternoon, my mother called me herself. For the first time in almost 4 months. Her voice sounded strangely warm. Baby, are you all right? I almost smiled hearing it. That soft voice. Careful. Concerned. My mother only used that tone when other people were listening. I'm managing, I said. She sighed dramatically. Eric told me you were struggling again. Again. There it was. I leaned back in my chair and let her talk. She mentioned rehab twice. Said she'd been praying for me. Then she slipped into something else. Questions. Where was I living now? Was I still working? Did I have savings left? I answered vaguely. Enough to keep her talking. Then she asked the one thing that made my stomach tighten. Did you ever cash out that old lottery ticket you mentioned years ago? I froze. Not because of the question itself. Because I had never told her about the ticket. Not once. Only one person knew I'd bought it months earlier at a gas station outside Toledo. My ex-girlfriend, Vanessa. And Vanessa had spent Thanksgiving at my mother's house last year. Something cold settled in my chest. My mother kept talking, pretending nothing happened, but I barely heard her anymore. Because suddenly the rumors made sense. The fake concern. The sudden phone calls. Someone thought I had money. They just didn't know how much. And that's when I decided to stop testing them quietly. The next week, I became the poorest man in the family. At least online. I borrowed an old sedan from my friend Marcus and parked it outside a rundown apartment complex near Akron. Then I posted a photo on Facebook with a caption about starting over. Within an hour, my aunt commented a prayer emoji. My brother ignored it. But my mother called again. This time she sounded nervous. "You're not answering people," she said carefully. "I've been busy." "With what?" I looked around the empty apartment Marcus let me use for the photos. "Trying to survive." Silence. Then she asked if I still had valuable things left to sell. That confirmed it for me. Nobody was worried about me. They were worried about what they could still get from me. So I pushed harder. I told her I was behind on rent. Said I might lose my car. Mentioned maybe taking out a personal loan. She suddenly became supportive. Too supportive. Offered advice. Asked detailed questions. Wanted numbers. That night, Marcus sat across from me eating takeout while I explained everything. "You think they already know?" he asked. "I think somebody told them enough to make them curious." "And the ex?" I nodded slowly. Because Vanessa hadn't contacted me once since the rumors started. Not until midnight. When she texted, "Heard you came into money. We should talk." I waited 2 days before replying to Vanessa. Just long enough to make her nervous. We met at a quiet bar outside Canton. Nothing fancy. Dark booze. Old country music playing low enough that people minded their own business. Vanessa hugged me too quickly when I walked in. "You look good," she said. I smiled. Thought I was broke. Her face tightened for half a second. Tiny reaction. Easy to miss. But that's what I'd started noticing lately. Small things. She spent most of the night fishing for information without sounding obvious. That's where I lived now. Whether I was still working contract jobs. Whether I still gambled sometimes. Then she finally said it. "Your mom mentioned you had a lucky streak recently." There it was. I kept my expression flat. Lottery ticket almost hit last year. Nothing big. Vanessa relaxed immediately after hearing that. Too immediately. Like she'd been checking something. That confirmed the last piece for me. My own mother had been discussing my finances behind my back with my ex. And if they were already sharing information, they were probably sharing plans too. So before leaving the bar, I told Vanessa something false. I said I was meeting an investor the following Friday because I might receive a large payout. Then I watched her text somebody from the parking lot before I even reached my car. Friday came fast. I rented a private room at a steakhouse downtown and arrived early with Marcus and my attorney, Glenn Porter. Glenn looked more like a retired football coach than a lawyer, which helped. People underestimated him constantly. At 6:12, Vanessa walked in. At 6:19, my mother arrived. Neither of them looked surprised to see the other. That told me everything. Vanessa acted embarrassed. My mother acted emotional. Both fake. Then my brother Eric showed up too. I almost respected the coordination. My mother reached for my hand first. "We've been worried sick." Glenn quietly recorded the entire dinner from his phone beside the water glass. I barely spoke. I just listened. Within 30 minutes, the conversation turned exactly where I expected. Investment opportunities. Helping family. Managing money responsibly. Eric even suggested putting assets into someone else's name, for protection. Nobody asked how I was feeling. Nobody mentioned the addiction rumors. Then Vanessa made the mistake. She laughed and said, "At least now the ticket finally paid off." The table went silent immediately afterward. Because I had never told anyone at that table I'd won the lottery. Not publicly. Not privately. Glenn calmly folded his napkin. Then he asked the question that changed everybody's face. "So which one of you accessed Mr. Holloway's financial records illegally?" Nobody answered Glenn. Not at first. My mother looked at Vanessa. Vanessa looked at Eric. It happened so fast and so naturally that they didn't even realize they were exposing each other. Then Eric stood up too quickly and knocked his water over. "This is insane," he snapped. Glenn stayed calm. "Actually, it's traceable." He slid a folder onto the table. Inside were screenshots from a private tax service account I hadn't used in years. Someone had attempted multiple password resets from my mother's home internet connection. 2 successful logins came from Vanessa's laptop 3 weeks earlier. That explained everything. The sudden concern. The rumors. The fake sympathy. They thought if I looked unstable, Nobody would question them getting involved in my finances. My mother started crying almost immediately. Said she was trying to protect me. Eric blamed Vanessa. Vanessa blamed everybody else. I just sat there quietly. Because the worst part wasn't the money. It was realizing how little it took for them to turn on me. After dinner, Glenn filed the reports. I moved into the new house 2 counties away and changed my number within the week. Trey was the only family member I stayed in contact with. The funny part? I never once asked any of them for real help. I only asked for $8 and change.